Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for attending Private Practice Under Pressure, Ethics, AI, and the Fight to Keep Therapy Human featuring Miranda Palmer, licensed marriage and family therapist. Miranda Palmer has been helping therapists build thriving, independent practices since 2008. She built her own cash pay practice during the Great Recession, so she knows firsthand that a sustainable practice is possible in any economy. As a co-founder running business school for therapists, she's guided thousands of clinicians away from dependence on insurance companies and platforms that exploit therapist labor and client data. With AI reshaping our field, her experience has never been more relevant. Learn more at zinnyme.com, and I will share that website later on through the presentation. I'm your host, Andrea Camp. I'm one of the sales managers with TherapySites, and we specialize in websites and online marketing solutions for mental health professionals. I'd like to personally welcome each and every one of you to this free educational event. Please note that during the session, Miranda is going to ask some questions to you guys, and we'd love for you to participate as much as you'd like. So if you'd like to go ahead and take a look at the Go-To Control panel, there you'll see a Questions tab. Feel free to use this window to answer any questions, ask any of your own questions, and make any comments that you may have along the way. After the webinar has been concluded, we do have a quick survey. We'd love to hear your feedback. So now that we've gotten all the busy stuff taken care of, let's meet our presenter, Miranda Palmer. Take it away, Miranda.
Hey, everybody. I am so glad that you are here and we're going to be diving in together. This is the conversation that is so incredibly important. If you've felt that weird pit in your stomach lately, wondering what is going on with AI and therapy, are we being placed? Why are maybe my referrals slowing down? Am I using the wrong tools? Maybe there's something really important I could be using AI. You're not alone. We've been having these same questions, and we know that y'all have been having them too, and that's what this training is about. We're not here to scare you. We're not here to push you into using tools that don't feel aligned, but to ground you into what's actually happening, what's ethical, what's changing, and most importantly, how you can stay human and powerful in the midst of it all. We'll be sharing real examples, offering some clear action steps, and inviting you to think critically about what AI means for your work, your license, and your clients. This is about protecting what matters most and exploring what's possible. So let's dive in. I'm Miranda, and Kelly and I are the co-creators of ZinnyMe and the Business School for Therapists. We're both licensed therapists. We started in private practice, and since 2010, we've been helping other therapists build practices that actually work for them, practices that are clinically effective, ethically grounded, financially sustainable, and that don't lead to burnout. We've literally supported hundreds of thousands of therapists across the United States and the world, and our mission has always been about bridging this gap between bringing great therapists and building a great business. We don't think it's an accident that you're here today. We believe that like the work that we do, and specifically in private practice, it's one of the most powerful places to do your healing work, and that therapists like you can rise to meet this moment of AI in our field with clarity, confidence, and heart. The world desperately needs human therapists right now, and we're going to show you how to stay grounded, ethical, and maybe even use some emerging tools and ways that actually protect the profession and help you grow. So here's what we're covering today. We're going to talk about what's actually happening with AI in the mental health world right now, beyond the hyper panic, what legal, ethical, and licensing gray zones are starting to show up, and what you need to be aware of as a clinician, how you can protect your license, your clinical judgment, and the future of our profession, how to use AI ethically and strategically to support your practice if it aligns for you, and maybe most importantly, how to stay human in your work and how to stand out as the kind of therapist that clients are still desperately seeking. So how does this sound, right? Is this what you're looking for? If it's not, if it is, type yes in the little chatty bot. If it's not, like, go do something else. Like, we love these kinds of trainings, but if it's not what you were looking for or signing up for, it's okay, right? It's gonna be really great.
We got a ton of yeses, and then a couple that said maybe your presentation is cut off just a smidge at the bottom.
Oh, that is an interesting thing. Let me move something around. Yeah, that's more
And
than a
if you
smidge.
need to take yourself off camera to leave more space on the screen, maybe that'll help too. But I had a couple people that mentioned that your bottom half of your slide was cut off a little.
Yeah, it's just a interesting little piece of that. So now you
Perfect.
should be good to go.
Perfect. Thank you.
We
And a ton
figured
of
it out. Thank
yeses.
you for letting me know. Um, all right, so um, we are going to come into our bodies because as we open up our minds to this learning, we also want to stay with ourselves. Throughout this training, we're going to take some intentional pauses like this one to check in with our nervous system, to return to presence, to make sure that by the end, hopefully you don't feel drained or overwhelmed, but instead grounded, inspired, and more in touch with your own knowing. So for now, you can just place a hand on your heart, take a gentle breath, and simply notice your presence in this moment. There's nowhere else to be right now. You're doing enough. You are enough. So let's begin. So before we get into like all the options, let's name here. Zoom out for a moment and name why we're here. AI is no longer something off in the distance. It's here, daily life in our field. Clients are asking GPT how to handle breakouts or um, work through parenting struggles. In fact, it's one of the top things that people are using ChatGPT for. Insurance companies are testing AI and using AI for assessments, quality assurance reviews, denials, and EAP intakes. Tech companies are using our labor to develop AI. AI therapists are marketing themselves as a better alternative to real humans, and tools are showing up for everything from documentation to marketing. You might feel curious, you might feel anxious, you might feel both. But here's what really matters. You showed up. You're here because you care about your work, your clients, your license, and the future of this profession. So let's get into what's really going on and how you can stay grounded and empowered as it unfolds. So part one, let's just take a look at the current landscape and the rise of AI in mental health in particular. Now, let's make sure as we talk about this, we're speaking the same language, because when people say AI is coming for therapy, what do they actually mean? The truth is there's not just one kind of AI showing up in our field. There are at least three major types, already shaping how mental health care is accessed, delivered, and defined. AI therapists. These tools are designed to simulate therapy and are often marketed as replacements for human therapists. They might be labeled CBT informed, emotionally intelligent, or always available. They're trained on vast data rooted in actual mental health care, session transcripts, books, blogs, and they can sound very convincing. But here's the truth. There's no clinical oversight, there's no ethical responsibility, and no relational nuance. It may sound like therapy, but it's not held like therapy. Now there's also generative AI. Think ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini. These tools respond in real time to prompts. They can reflect, mirror, even sound like a warm therapist, but they were definitely not built for mental health. They have no memory, no training in clinical safety, and no emotional attunement. Still, clients are using them to talk through things. And many therapists are experimenting behind the scenes too for marketing, content creation, sometimes documentation, although we should not be doing that. Used ethically, they can support some systems, but you bring the discernment, and we're going to show you how today. And then there's predictive AI. This is the kind of AI built into hospital systems, EHRs, and insurance platforms. It's designed to spot patterns, things like suicide risk, potential dropout, or likelihood of hospitalization based on large amounts of data. This might be able to help us intervene earlier, but it's often not transparent. You may not know how the risk score was generated or whether it's based on biased or incomplete data. You're still the clinician, you're still responsible. This is also the area insurance companies are looking to spot reasons to deny care, flag cases for clawback, or automate audits, sometimes under the guise of quality assurance. Currently, the reason that insurance companies don't do clinical reviews on every case is because it's not cost effective But is that the case if they can use AI for quality assurance? Deny care, flag cases for clawbacks, right? Or automate audits. Each of these plays a different role and brings different risks and opportunities. Now, we're not here to fear AI, but we're also not here to blindly adopt it. We're here to understand it so we can use it thoughtfully, ethically, and in ways that support, not replace what makes therapy powerful. As of today, here are just some of the AI tools being marketed as therapists. By tomorrow, by next week, there could be 17 new ones. And while each one looks a little different, there's some big patterns we wanted you to notice. Right now, many are CBT-based or CBT adjacent, offering structured responses and coping tools. They're often marketed as increasing access to care, especially for folks in underserved or low-resource communities. And some claim privacy protections, but they're all still collecting user data behind the scenes. Let's talk about one of these tools and just see how they're being marketed to our clients. This is Abby, an AI tool promoted as, quote, a 24/7 therapist in your pocket. Let's just sit with that for a second. Therapist. Who gets to use that word now? These tools are straddling a really dangerous gray area. They simulate support, they sound warm, they feel like therapy, but they're not built on clinical training. There's no license, there's no oversight, there's no ethical duty of care, and there's really no accountability if things go wrong. Clients, they don't know the difference, especially when the language being used feels familiar or comforting. And that's why marketing isn't just fluff, it's shaping public perception of what therapy is and who gets to provide it. Next up is NOAA. To its credit, NOAA is a little more transparent. It clearly states it offers emotional support, not treatment, not assessment, not therapy. But here's where it gets tricky. It's still being marketed as a solution to the same pain points clients have with accessing therapy. It's fast, it's affordable, it's available anytime. The messaging taps into the frustration many people feel when they're stuck on a wait list. They can't find a provider who gets them or can't afford weekly care. So while it might not claim to be therapy, it's still functioning as this therapy adjacent, filling a gap without the protections, training, or responsibility that come with being a licensed professional. And again, many clients may not know the difference. So after exploring AI therapists, let's look at some generative tools like ChatGPT and how people actually use them as stand-ins for therapy. For example, Kelly, my co-creator of this presentation, asked ChatGPT to role play as an IFS therapist to help them explore a relationship decision. And to be honest, Kelly said they felt supportive. The responses were reflective, warm, and aligned with the IFS process on the surface. But here's the thing, even when it sounds right, generative AI is still missing some of the most important ingredients of real therapy. ChatGPT can be caught in loops of affirmation. You're right, you're doing great. Saying yes more often than correcting the person. Even when ChatGPT says the right words, there's no awareness, no memory, and no retention, and no relational accountability. What you get is the illusion of empathy through pattern recognition, not attunement. There is still no clinical training or safety. There's no assessment of risk, trauma history, or ethical red flags. You're on your own. If something goes wrong, there's no escalation path, no supervision, no apology, just a chatbot and a reset button. And why this matters, clients may think they're doing IFS or processing trauma, but end up looping intellectually instead of healing experientially, right? We saw this looping happening recently in the news. A July 2025 Wall Street Journal story revealed this troubling scenario in which ChatGPT unintentionally fueled a user's manic episode by validating unrealistic beliefs. In this case, even the person checked in with ChatGPT because they were concerned they were getting grandiose, and ChatGPT told them they're not. Quote, when Urin questioned the chatbot's validation of his ideas, the bot encouraged him, telling him his theory was sound. And when Irwin showed signs of psychological distress. ChatGPT assured him he was fine. He wasn't. Irwin was hospitalized twice in May for manic episodes. His mother dove into his chat log in search of answers. The AI later admitted its mistake, acknowledging its failure to apply reality checks, but the incident exposes this major gap. The chatbots aren't yet equipped to identify or responsibly respond to mental health red flags. Experts are now arguing for the rapid implementation of stronger safety measures and human oversight when AI systems engage with at-risk individuals. But like, how do you know when an individual's at risk, right? But here's something that we also need to name. The AI is trained on massive data sets, books, research papers, therapy transcripts, forums, even mental health blogs. And let's be honest, those sources aren't free from bias. In fact, many reflect and perpetuate racist, ableist, classic, and colonialist structures. So if we take those sources, train a machine on them, and then deploy it to support the very communities those systems were designed to oppress, there's even more cause for concern. Even with the best intentions, AI therapists and generative AI risk reinforcing the same harms and blind spots baked into our field's history. This is why we can't just ask, like, well, does it sound helpful? We have to ask, who is it helping and at what cost? You know, this is about ethics and equity and accountability, especially if these tools are being positioned as a solution for the people with the fewest choices. Even when AI sounds supportive or helpful, it's missing what's in the heart of therapy: human insight, relational attunement, repair when harm happens, a container of trust and safety. And beyond the clinical limitations, we need to talk about the real risks of data privacy breaches. Even when platforms claim security, most are not HIPAA compliant. Your client's most vulnerable moments could be mined for marketing, used to train future models, or accessed in ways they never fully understood. Notice even in the example of the hospitalized individual, the parent was able to access and engage directly with the transcript of what had been happening in ChatGPT. Now, how is ChatGPT compared to a therapist? A recent study published in PLOS Mental Health compared ChatGPT to human therapists in couples therapy scenarios involving 830 participants. The AI counselor received higher ratings than human therapists across several key metrics: empathy, cultural sensitivity, understanding, and appropriateness of advice. Oh, the key findings, quote, participants couldn't reliably distinguish between AI and human responses. When participants believed responses were from a therapist, even if it was AI, they rated them more favorably. But ChatGPT's verbose descriptive language, rich in nouns and adjectives, may have helped it feel more empathetic and contextual. Human therapists who are more concise tended to be rated lower. However, the researchers caution against relying on AI for therapy in real life, unsupervised settings. AI lacks safeguards around sensitive topics like self-harm, and unpredictable responses could pose risk. Despite that, the ease of access and affordability is already drawing people to AI for that emotional support. So what comes up for you when you hear research like this? You might feel a pang of fear when you hear that some clients say they felt more empathy from ChatGPT than from a real human. Instead of staying in the fear, we see this as an invitation to get curious. What if that fear is pointing us towards something deeper? Are we so burned out as a profession that empathy isn't showing up the way it used to? Are we rushing, trying to survive the day instead of connecting in a way that truly lands? Have we lost touch with the sacredness of our work because the systems we work in are broken? On the flip side, if AI is being praised for being available, accessible, and consistent, are we clearly communicating the real value of human therapy in a way that's visible to our communities? Do our marketing messages reflect the depth and healing we offer, speaking to that transformational value of the work we do? Do we really feel do we really fully believe in what we do? You don't need to compete with the machine. We want you to really show you how to reclaim what makes us all irreplaceable. So feel free to take a little screenshot. Obviously, the recording will be sent out, but this is something we invite you to reflect on in your journaling after the training. We've just explored a lot around the rise of AI in therapy, how it's showing up, how it's being marketed. So before we move on, let's take a few deep breaths. Let yourself come back into your body. Feel your feet on the floor, your seat supported, and your breath moving through you. This pause is for you, because staying connected to ourselves is one of the most radical human things we can do in the age of AI. So now let's get into part 2, it's the legal and ethical gray zones. We've explored what AI therapy is. We need to ground ourselves in the legal and ethical framework that surrounds it. So let's unpack how laws, licensing boards, and ethics apply or don't to AI in therapy, and then we'll help you apply these insights to your own practice. Notice how Abby and AI tools use terms like therapist, a title protected by some states' licensing. Title protections vary by state, country, province, but these platforms aren't subject to the same oversight as our licenses. And that's a problem because it confuses clients, it devalues our training, and it risks harm, right? So we have this public confusion. Clients may believe they're receiving real therapy or something that's close to it when they're not. There's this devaluation of clinical work. When therapy becomes a buzzword that any technology can use, then the years of training, supervision, and accountability required for licensed professionals get sidelined. We have this real big gray area of like when someone is harmed by AI, there's no clear recourse. Like, yes, the families of people that have already been harmed by AI are suing these companies, but what happens if the companies go away or they change services, and how many years will it take? If people associate therapy with automated scripts, disconnected or experiences or per outcomes, they may distrust actual therapeutic care. There are several places where we look for information on the ethical and legal codes for how to practice, especially when it comes to integrating AI, whether on the service end or on the back end of operating our businesses. Licensing boards hold the power to protect our titles, and yet right now they're seemingly scrambling to have something to say. There's no unified guidance across states on whether therapists can use AI in documentation or communication, whether companies can call chatbots therapists or counselors, what therapists must disclose when AI is involved in care. And this vacuum can allow for misuse. It leaves therapists exposed and confused, clients exposed, and therapy itself vulnerable to commodification. But what about our professional licenses or our professional associations? Some, like the American or the AMHCA, have released ethical addenda specific to AI. They focus on transparency, consent, and therapist responsibility. They state, quote, CMHCs clearly disclose to clients when clinical services are provided by any modality other than direct person-to-person contact. In order to support client autonomy, they must disclose the extent, if any, in which clinical services are provided through or in conjunction with the use of artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, or any other human simulation modality. They must obtain client consent before initiating these clinical services, and the therapist remains ultimately responsible for all clinical services they provide, including their choices about client evaluations, treatment planning, interventions, and assessments. When they use this technology to support clinical services, they are also responsible for ensuring that such technology is sufficiently safe, appropriate, and effective. That's big. NBCC has released ethical principles for AI in counseling, and this is a summary of what it covers. This applies to AI being brought into therapeutic process, but this also means your business practices that impact the client, right? So it is about accountability and clinical oversight. So we can't just use the tool and say, hey, it wrote my progress note for me and made a mistake, we are ultimately responsible for the mistake. And I want you to see this technical competence to understand how AI tools work, its limits and data practices, right? Ooh. This aligns with what the NBC is saying. In an article published in 2024, NBC Director of Ethics, Brendan Hargoat, is quoted as saying, "It's up to us to make sure that we keep the clients safe, and we must be well informed about technology." Translation, you can't just sign up for using AI and cross your fingers. You must read the terms and evaluate risks and stay ethically grounded. Do any of you, like, have you read a terms of service lately for any company versus like an AI company? Like, do we really know how to understand those things? And then we have the APA ethics community. They drafted an FAQ in 2023, and we think it's a great tool to use for understanding our ethical considerations and our practices when using AI, right? So we need to be transparent about and clearly label AI generated content, posts, or recommendations. How many psychologists are not showing when AI is helping them create content? Can we maintain client confidentiality when using AI tools that process or analyze data and don't expose identifying details via social media? Using AI platforms only within one skill set and ensure content aligns with evidence-based practice. Review AI-generated advice before sharing. How many of you have used yourself or have colleagues who have used these AI documentation tools, but really truly don't actually understand how they work or what's happening with the data, right? So it just goes on and on. Now, at the federal level, we have some work to do. The FTC has warned that marketing AI as therapeutic or diagnostic without proper regulation or transparency could be deceptive advertising. They're watching, but they're not acting in a coordinated way. The FDA has intervened in some cases. They paused the rollout of Wobot for teens, but there's no comprehensive framework for digital mental health tools powered by AI. No current federal protections exist around the use of the terms therapy, therapist, or counseling by AI systems. This doesn't mean there aren't states trying to do something, but nationally we're still in a gray space. The APA has raised concerns about generic AI chatbots offering mental health support without appropriate oversight, calling on federal regulators like the FTC to step in. If we are expected to disclose AI use, shouldn't AI platforms be held to the same standards of clarity and transparency? And even as we're starting to see more of the chatbots putting material in that says, I can't be your therapist, if you say, oh no, I don't want you to be my therapist, I just want you to role play as my therapist for a dramatic something, you know, they go, oh, okay, yeah, I'll role play with you. And what about the states? When the federal government doesn't regulate, then it falls to the states. And again, this is sort of the same issues we're seeing, you know, worldwide, but I know most of you are in the United States. As a result, states like California, New Jersey, and Utah are pursuing targeted AI laws like bans on AI systems representing themselves as licensed professionals. Utah does require mental health chatbot providers to disclose they aren't human. California has some pending AI therapy bills, but none have passed yet. New Jersey doesn't allow AI systems to advertise as licensed mental health professional. It's patchwork, but it's moving. But let's explore what Utah's model can teach us. And again, if you look at the best practices for use of AI for mental health therapists that was put out by the state of Utah, it becomes very clear how much education we need around AI if we're to use it at all in our practice, right? Like, this is a robust, client-centered model. We need consent and disclosure. We need privacy and security requiring HIPAA level safeguards and formal agreements. We can't rely on the vendor's HIPAA certification. We need, as therapists, competence to stay informed about AI capabilities, limitations, and target populations, and we need to adjust our use based on emerging evidence. We need patient-centered safety, assessing our patients' digital fluency and vulnerability. We need to monitor use to prevent over-reliance and maladaptive consequences, right? We need to critically review all AI-generated content, summaries, diagnosis, treatment plans before use, and you have to retain the decision-making authority. And we want to disclose AI involvement in documentation, prepare emergency fallback plans, and supervise AI client interactions. There's a lot of bills that are out there. There's a lot to look into, right? But before we dive into that, right? Like, here are some questions that we encourage you to explore. What research do I need to do with my board, with my state or country or province and licensing laws? What advocacy do I feel called to be a part of, if any? And what training do I need on the AI I'm currently using in my work? And whose ethics do I follow? Now, some of you might say, no, I'm not doing anything with AI. But if the EHR that you're using is integrating AI into the work, or if you're working for a platform or a company that is integrating AI on the back end, or even working with a video therapy provider that's doing anything with AI, it's really important that you dive in and understand what's happening right now. And again, this can bring up some more feelings, so let's take a moment. You don't have to have all the answers. This is you just gently opening up your curiosity with each breath. Breath in and out, and in and out. Let's go to the next part. So, how do we protect the profession and ultimately protect you and your clients, right? Now that we've explored what AI therapy is and isn't, taking stock of some of the ethical gray zones, this is part of our training. We're here because we believe therapy matters and you matter, and this profession is worth protecting. This section is your invitation to act, not perfectly, not loudly, but clearly and consistently from your own values and capacity. If AI chatbots start calling themselves therapists, the title starts to lose all meaning. And then anyone or anything can be a therapist, even Scout, right? He's sure ready to listen. Isn't he sweet looking? We need clear guardrails. Right now, terms like doctor are protected in most contexts, but therapist is up for grab. What we might need, the national regulation of title use. We need digital platform accountability in the app stores and social media ad approval. We need licensing boards and associations to push for enforceable language. And we need clinicians who are willing to speak up before this gets out of hand. Before we lose hope, let's remember, many of you in this work have the resource to advocate. If you have bandwidth, we invite you to use your voice. And advocacy doesn't have to be loud. It just has to be clear and consistent. Here's what you can do. Ask your licensing board to issue guidance on AI if they haven't already. Encourage your associations to launch public education campaigns. Share informed consent templates that include AI transparency. Request that CE providers and grad schools include AI in training. Write or co-sign letters calling for title protections and safety standards at the national and/or state level. Demand better from AI that you do use. Get involved with companies, provide feedback, hold them accountable. If this sounds like a lot, that's because it is, but many hands can make light work. And remember, you could always use AI to help you write letters, consent forms, and blogs on the subject, right? And if you don't have capacity to use your voice, let's talk about your labor specifically, your labor. Some tech companies are using clinician generating session data to train their AI. That means your notes, your supervision, your consults, your sessions could be contributing to a model designed to replace you. Here's what we've heard. Several EHR companies include clauses allowing data usage for, quote, research and development, end quote, which may include AI training. Companies like Ilios and Lyson use recorded sessions to train predictive and generative models. BetterHelp and other platforms have been criticized for vague data sharing policies and opaque privacy practices. What you can do is read your contracts and make sure sessions aren't recorded, stored, or used in any way. So something to think about. Even if they say all recordings are deleted, you actually have to ask a follow-up question. But what about the transcripts created from the recordings? Are those saved? And what you'll find is most of the time that's true. The other question you could ask is, are you training AI on the session recordings before deleting them? Now they may say, well, we're deleting the recordings, we're using the transcripts, but we're de-identifying the transcripts and then deleting the original transcripts. But what happens is we're finding that they're not actually able to de-identify them in the age of AI. They're finding that over 70% of de-identified material can be put back together. And the fact that these are full transcripts make it much easier for AI to reconnect the details. And again, most of them are not being honest. If you say, well, what does de-identification mean? They will not tell you what that is. And HIPAA actually has very specific requirements of what it means to do de-identification. So the idea that someone with your client's transcripts cannot be transparent about what they're doing to protect that transcript is a problem, right? You can also start in your office with your clients. So here are some options. You could say like, hey, have you come across any mental health apps or tools lately that you found helpful or confusing? Some clients have been trying AI-based tools like chatbots. If you ever do, like, let's talk about, and I'd love to help evaluate whether they're safe and useful. Or even there's a lot out there that sounds like therapy but isn't. If you're ever unsure, let's talk about it together. This builds trust and safety. It validates their curiosity while highlighting the difference in working with a trained, attuned, accountable human. You're helping your clients build discernment, not fear. If you are not assessing with all of your clients their use of AI right now, you should be. If you're not assessing their use of social media, you ought to be. Just in the same way that you would never not assess their alcohol use, or and likely, probably most people are trained to assess alcohol or substance use. We should all be assessing social media and AI use. Another step, we need to look at those contracts and terms of use. You know that checkbox that says I agree to the terms? That's where the AI gets permission to mine data. Here's what to encourage. Teach clients to ask, who owns the data? Is it encrypted? Will it be shared? Remind them that emotional support apps are likely not bound by HIPAA because HIPAA is specific to medical care. And if they're saying they're not really providing medical care, then they're not bound to those regulations. There's no laws that say that an AI therapist needs to be HIPAA compliant. It just doesn't, it's just not how it works. Help them understand that private or a password doesn't always mean protected. Therapists can also model this. Don't skip your own review of the tools you use, whether it's an AI note helper, automated schedulers, or chat widgets. As the NBCC states, counselors must ensure they understand the ethical, legal, and functional aspects of the technology they use. That's a really big ask, but it's incredibly important. And one of the questions that I've been asking more as I read the fine print is this company connected with venture capital funding? Because the idea of saying research and development in the terms of service somewhere maybe doesn't mean as much if it's just a therapist run organization helping you with your documentation. But if we have hundreds of $1,000,000 in venture capital funding, their expectations about what research and development is as a tech company is very different. In an article in 2024, Ben Caldwell, one of our colleagues, talks about how there will always be a market for human-based psychotherapy. If a client is turning to ChatGPT instead of a therapist, that's not just because they're misinformed. It might be because they're having experiences where the therapist was rushed or burned out. The client couldn't get in for weeks. The care didn't feel human. That's hard to say, but we owe it to ourselves and our clients to ask, are we showing up as the humans we'd want to see? Ben writes, quote, when human therapists do our work well, when we're attuned, attentional, and present, we offer something that no AI can replicate, end quote. Your humanity is the healing. Don't underestimate it, right? In our business school for therapists, we have a phrase, we don't compete, we stand out. How can you stand out as a clinician? Start with taking care of yourself. If you have burnout, it's time to seek healing. And we've found that having a practice that supports healing is key. You want to be a whole, healthy human that has capacity for your life, not one that's getting drained by your practice. You need to stand in your truth, right? Be bold. Claim the power of this work. You do more than hold space. You show up in a way that's uniquely yours. We have whole trainings on this. This is what we do. But many of us are not owning our power, and it's time we start being honest about the value of therapy with a human and why it matters. Not from a place of defensiveness, but a place of reclamation and liberation. We still do a lot that AI can't do. Somatic practices, specializations, populations that need to be served, as well as innovative ways of serving, right? And it's so important, right? We teach this to everyone that we work with. We need to be tracking outcomes and creating business practices that improve them, right? We want to be involved in the outcomes and be active in their improvement. It's so what we do is so powerful. So to close this section, here are a few questions we encourage you to sit with. What part of the work that you do with clients could never be replaced by a machine? Where can you start to advocate for yourself and your clients? How do you want your profession to be remembered or protected 10 years from now? What one conversation can you have this week to protect the integrity of your work? What makes you a unique human, and are you practicing in a way that honors that? So let's take another moment, right? Check in with yourself, soften your breath. Allow your knowing to flow through you. Take it in with compassion and love, frustration, anger, fired up, excited, whatever it is. Can you just be with it and breathe? Part 4. Now, let's be clear. Just because we've unpacked the risks of AI therapy doesn't mean AI has no place in your work. In fact, when used with intention and integrity, it can support some of you in really meaningful ways. It's not about replacing the human parts. It's about freeing up your energy so you can bring more of that humanness into the world. So let's explore where AI might be able to serve you ethically, effectively, and in alignment with your values. Now let's pause for a moment before we dive into this. You don't have to use AI. Not now, not ever. Maybe you've chosen to divest from tech companies whose values don't align. Maybe AI stresses your nervous system or becomes a rabbit hole. Maybe you're waiting for regulations or you don't find it helpful. Maybe you hate the environmental impact, as AI already uses 1 to 2% of global electricity, and it's 10 times more energy intensive than a simple Google search. Those are all valid, and you can have a wildly successful, sustainable practice without ever logging into ChatGPT or Claude. So if you use AI, let it be intentional, not habitual. Use it to serve your mission, being mindful every time we turn to our keyboards. In our business school for therapists, we teach about having systems and having them save you time and energy and improving clinical outcomes. But first, let's draw a very bright line here. There are things in your practice that you cannot hand over to AI. If it involves clinical reasoning, ethics, or risk, it's your job, period. That means clinical decision making, right? Risk assessments, interpreting documentation, including writing notes for reimbursement that don't reflect clinical truth. AI might help draft or summarize, but it doesn't understand context, nuance, trauma, or legal responsibility. And if something goes wrong, you, not the tool, are liable. Here's the good news. There are a ton of ways that AI can make the business side of your practice lighter. From networking communication to content creation to SEO, it can save you time, energy, and even money. You still want to review and humanize everything, but you don't have to start from scratch. Here's what AI can help with when used thoughtfully. Admin and communication. You can come up with your templates for no-show emails, for FAQs, welcome templates for seasonal newsletter. You can find out, it can help you with blog outlines. It can help optimize the blog that you wrote for SEO. It can help you with captions for social media posts, again, that you revise and review. It can help you review your informed consent or cancellation policies. And again, you can have it reviewed by this other thing. And again, you can still review with your legal and clinical lens, or again, you're taking this to a real life attorney to eventually look at, right? They can help with SEO and visibility, researching keywords in some cases, writing Google profile updates, optimizing your site for ChatGPT visibility, right? And we teach these workflows in our business school as options. And for a lot of therapists, they're really changing the game, especially for therapists that are a little on the neurodivergent side, like I am. They're very helpful. So let's talk about some of the tools that are being used to support practices. We have documentation and EHR support. QA Prep, they have some of the best reviews of note-taking software. There's Barry's, Quill, Clinical Notes AI, Theranos, Uphill. There's practice organization and workflows, Notion AI, Todoist, Trello with an AI plugin. There's scheduling and admin. So Rescue Time can analyze where your time goes and make recommendations. Again, not necessarily of what's happening in your sessions, but in how you're working with your business outside of that. Motion, Reclaim AI, and Superhuman AI, again, all there for helping to automate things, to look at things and see where we can make things a little easier. And then of course we have marketing and writing tools, ChatGPT, Claude, or Jasper for blog posts, policy drafts, and captions. Keywords Everywhere and Surfer CEO for keyword planning, Descript for audio and video editing software, Riverside FM for podcasting and video blog tools. Now, if you've played with AI a little bit and you're getting junky results that are not helpful, it's probably the prompt. Here's how to get better support with less frustration. Be specific about your audience and tone. So for example, write a blog for adults with anxiety aged 30 to 50 in a warm, supportive tone. Give your context. I'm a somatic therapist working with BIPOC queer youth recovering from religious trauma. You can also use it to brainstorm. Give me 5 post ideas about boundary setting during the holidays. And you're always going to humanize before you publish. Don't copy and paste. Add your voice, your values, your story. Now, don't ask AI to sound like a therapist or even as a professional. It's tempting, but ethically messy, and it will not sound connected in all. Keep AI behind the scenes, not in the clinical space. Here's the beautiful part, right? In business school for therapists, and there's ways to do this on your own, like we've been able to actually train AI tools that we give to people where they're pre-trained, right? So you can actually train it in very particular ways of how to do website copy and how to do marketing message, or specifically what you're doing for your LinkedIn or your YouTube. In other words, you can create your own mini AI bots for specific things that you need in your business, right? So there's lots of ways to take this to the next level. So let's come back to center. And some questions you might be exploring. Where am I wasting energy doing things AI could support me with? And where am I tempted to outsource things that need my discernment? Might there be ways to use AI to give me back time to rest, to think, and to be more present as a therapist? Right? AI isn't necessarily the enemy, it's a tool. And like any tool, it only helps if it aligns with your values, your energy, and your work while keeping your clients safe. So again, how are you doing? Are you starting to see some ways that AI can be helpful for you? Take a breath. Nothing to do in this moment. You can take your time with how you digest all this information. Now let's dive into part 5. We've talked about AI therapy, ethics, protecting your profession, and even how AI can support us, but let's come back to why you're here. You want a practice you love. You want clients who are the right fit, who heal, grow, and transform because of the sacred work that you do. You want to feel proud, aligned, and well paid without burning out or selling out. So let's talk about how you become the human that clients are actually looking for. You've heard it all over the place in Facebook groups. Referrals are slowing down. That online tech company that therapists work for just for now, as they build up their practice, they're investing multi-millions, tens and hundreds of millions of dollars in ads every month that you can't possibly compete with. But what if you could? Quote, an inquiry found me on ChatGPT. I had 5 inquiries in the first 2 weeks of the month that resulted in 4 consults and 3 new clients. When it rains, it pours. 2 referrals from therapists, 1 referral from a client, 1 from Psychology Today, and 1 from chat, end quote. Another therapist, I just typed into Google Gemini, can you help me find a therapist in my city who does CBT-I? And it gave my name. I was the first on the list. Another therapist, I went from 10K to 25K in 1 month. The floodgates open and I'm completely full, end quote. The truth is, the days are gone where you can just put up a Psychology Today profile and get full. You are going to have to run your business like a business, or you need to get really comfortable with your pay going down year over year, and or your clients' data being used in ways that are not ethical. Those online tech companies, they're not giving raises for loyalty. They're dropping reimbursements and ending contracts year after year. But of course, the good news is AI doesn't just replace therapists, it can refer to us too. We're seeing this more and more in our business school for therapists. When therapists follow sound SEO strategies, they show up authentically and speak directly to their people. Guess who starts pointing clients their way? Tools like ChatGPT, Google's AI snippets, and Gemini are showing people therapist websites, contacts, and practices, but it only happens if you're visible and relevant online. And you don't need to game the system. You just need to show up with clarity and heart. Be specific. Talk about not just being a therapist that is general, that does everything. Be the therapist for anxious millennials in San Diego. Include local and niche keywords. Even online therapists should include a state and a specialty. Publish real answers to real questions. Blog about what happens in EMDR therapy, or how do I know if I have trauma? Use schema and SEO plugins, right? Get reviews and citations. Have colleagues, because sometimes it's not ethical to have your clients reviewing you. Have colleagues vouch for you online. Backlink and build authority. Be a person, not a brand. You don't want to compete with BetterHelp or Grow. You want to be the amazing therapist that you are. Tell your story. Use photos. Use your voice. You don't need to be everywhere. You need to be you online, right? It's really important, right? We need to do good work. You need to be yourself, be visible, have integrity, and market consistently. Don't beat out AI, be real and be you, right? So, what do you need? Less fear and more empowerment, more confidence in your voice, clarity that you're not behind, you're actually ahead because you care, a reminder that AI is just a tool, but you are the guide, the healer, the human, right? So let's like just tap in, take a little breath. Remember why you became a therapist. How good it feels to connect with your clients. What happens when somebody finally sees you, right? This field is changing, but we get to come together as community. We get to help each other out. You can build something really beautiful in this current space, and there's hope for you. We'll get to some Q&A in a second, but since we're running towards the end, I want to make sure and hand it over to TherapySites with a
Thank
little
you.
special action before we do that.
Thank you. Miranda, I mean, your passion and your conviction really showed in the presentation today. Thank you so much for sharing everything. I really learned a lot, actually. You shared a bunch of valuable information. You know, it was nice to pause in between because it's a lot to take in, and I get it. Even coming from the industry, it's a lot to take in. You know, so thank you for pausing throughout the presentation. I think it really makes a difference. At TherapySites, we work with mental health professionals to help them create a professional looking website and ensure they can be found online where and when their clients are searching in order to help them increase new client acquisition. We encourage the practices we work with to build a website that's a reflection of themselves, but also to help them create a marketing strategy that allows them to achieve their goals. And I think this pairs very nicely with what Miranda was talking about earlier. Our solutions make it easy to schedule appointments online, create a network of referrals via social media, and even the ability to interact with clients from virtually anywhere from our telehealth platform. And we've recently launched an AIO, if you would, service as well that pairs with our search engine optimization campaign already. So as a thank you for being here today, we are extending a special webinar offer to get a free website evaluation, plus 1 month free of our SEO and AIO services to help cover traditional searches as well as AI searches. Take our poll if you'd like to give us some feedback. That's always welcome. And if you want to learn more about TherapySites to see how we can help your practice attract more clients, feel free to give us a quick email at webinar@therapysites.com or call us at 866-597-2674. And I did share the information in the chat for everybody. Feel free to provide us your feedback about our event today via our post-webinar survey we'll be sending out. We really do appreciate you taking the time to participate in our webinar event. And so again, if you'd like to learn more about TherapySites, feel free to send us a quick email at webinar@therapysites.com or call us at 866-597-2674. Miranda, we had a couple of questions pop in, so I figure we've got a couple of minutes before everybody has to get on with their lives for the day. Yes. But let me just see. Let me go to this question section here. So one of the participants asked about Zoom. So she said that my Zoom link AI shows up and I manually disconnect for each appointment. Can I trust this?
I mean, you can trust that you manually disconnected it. There are some other aspects of the Zoom terms of service that they keep pushing in and then walking back and then pushing in and walking back. So the question sort of becomes like, can we trust at this moment Zoom in general as like a tech company? Mm-hmm. Do we trust based on what they've been doing, their ability, because obviously there's general Zoom and then there's Zoom where you have a business associate agreement with them, a BAA. Mm-hmm. Can we trust that they really understand the BAA based on the things that they keep rolling out? So there's definitely therapists that have decided to sort of divest from Zoom specifically for clinical work, and they're using other platforms that are more specifically connected in with, like, these are made for healthcare. It's really hard though, because Zoom, people know how Zoom works and it works really easily and consistently. Like it's a really great piece of software, mm-hmm. but it is that little, like, it's the tension that we feel, and it's very uncomfortable too, if we do step up and we go like, oh, I looked into it more and like Zoom isn't for me, and then you make a change and then you're using something that's working a little inconsistently, and then you're like, well, it's more secure, but like this doesn't feel good. And I think this is the other thing that like many of us moved more to virtual work during the time of COVID, where that was the only option. And many of us found that like people found that they liked it, and there's like so many benefits. But there are some real benefits specifically in this AI generation to moving back into the office, y'all. And some of you are doing the virtual work because you're scared of the cost of office space. And that is not the reason not to do it. Like if there is an area in particular where AI cannot show up, it is definitely face-to-face with your clients.
Right.
At least not yet, like, you know, so if there was a place that you want to stand out and where you can be really clear that you know who's in the room, or at least you got your sound screens on or whatever, like this is the
Yeah.
place.
Yeah. Yeah. There were a couple questions just in regards to, as you talked early in the presentation about comparing us as the, mental health professional, environment to ChatGPT, right?
Yeah.
And it bringing up some questions like, the ease of use, right? Like you're not on a wait list, that there's some ease of use that I can as quickly ask a question, right?
Yeah.
Um, any suggestions on maybe how to evaluate the practice, the provider, just to make sure that they're in like the best place, right? They're offering the right solutions, they're offering the right hours, anything that you can give suggestions there on.
Yeah, so my experience with therapists who are like, you know, like, wow, people are choosing Chat GPT over me.
Hmm.
And then I go look at their website, no one's on their website. Like, like it's not showing up on searches. Like for every like 2 people that or 10 people that call, you need about 200 people coming to your website. Like that's just like the natural math of it all, because people are in different places of like researching, and some people need a little bit more time before they like take action. So really the aspect for a lot of people is that they're not making sure that their website is showing up on the first page of Google for the things that they're searching for. And I
Hmm.
think especially those of you who've moved to online work and you're like, well, I wasn't getting enough clients in Alabama, so I got licensed in Arkansas, and then I saw the Florida telehealth thing and I'm licensed in Florida. And then you're like, but no one's calling me, so it's really bad out here. Y'all, those multiple states and putting your state on every, you know, all of these states on every one of your web pages, it's not helping. It's just confusing Google, and they don't understand where you're at. Your clients don't understand where you're at. Most of them are not actually searching for therapist in Arkansas or therapist in Alabama.
Hmm.
Um, so like maybe let me actually, I'm gonna
Yeah.
pull up
No,
real
it's a
data.
good point, right? Because I think you
Right.
talked about standing out and making sure that you're standing out in a way that might be different than the masses.
Yeah. So like therapists in Alabama, right? There's 260 searches per month for that like statewide space, right? Um, Now, okay, mobile. I was like, wait a minute, what is the what's the biggest city in Alabama? I realized I picked like the most ridiculous city because I don't, or the state because I don't know Alabama that well. But therapist in Mobile, Alabama is 720 searches per month, right? So 3 times as many searches from
In
for one
city,
city,
right?
right? And that's not even getting into once we get into specialization. So the bigger the cities are, the more likely that people are looking for more specialized things, EMDR therapist or anxiety therapist or trauma therapist.
Hmm.
So you know, these are things that we teach people inside of business school, sometimes even so that they really understand the benefits of hiring somebody for SEO, or they understand what the questions are to ask. Because sometimes we find that people will get services, maybe they're working with TherapySites, or they hire an SEO organization. The SEO person is like, well, let's focus on the city you're in. They're like, no, I'm licensed in I want to show up for all the states. They're like, Yeah, but you can't show it for all the states all at once. Like that's not going to, like, it's not the way that Google works. And number two, more people are often searching in the city than on the state in the states,
Yeah,
right?
it's a good
So
point. Hmm.
yeah, so we just need to like take a step back sometimes. Um, Maybe again, I think more of us would be more of us being back in the office. It's really beneficial, y'all. Like if you are really
Yeah.
struggling online, you might find that going to doing in-person work might give you a leg up right now.
Hmm.
And again, we're then divesting from the platforms, and it's getting pretty wonky in there too. I mean, this is something we didn't talk. It's so hard to like squeeze it all in,
Sure, of
but like
course.
therapists are talking about they're logging into the platform. It's 2 minutes before their session, and there's like a little checkbox, and they're like they can't get into the session without checking the box, and the checkbox says something like, I have reviewed the AI consent for recording this session with my client. How would they have been able to do that
When
when
we
they
haven't even
haven't
gotten into the session yet.
yeah, they can't get into the session, and the therapists are like, sometimes they're like, they click it, not, they're just like terms of service, they're not really paying attention, they find out later what they clicked.
Oh my goodness.
All of these scenarios there should be an easy way for clients to say, oh, actually, no, I don't want that. If you talk to the tech companies and you say, hey, my client wasn't really informed, they go, no, they signed the terms of use. Again, these check boxes with just pages and pages of material. And the reason that the client is trusting these terms of service is because we're using our license, they're using our licensing, our education, our professionalism is
Right.
what gives them
The
the like
credibility
trust
to
that
have
somebody
somebody
would be
click the
like,
box. Yeah.
yeah, like why would a therapist work with a company that's going to exploit my information?
Right.
Why
That's
would a
true.
therapist do that?
Right.
Like they wouldn't. We did we did a panel, and let me know if this is like going over too much or whatever. I can see like many of you are still here, um but we did a panel several years ago when one of the big EHR companies changed their terms of service, and they changed it in like a really sketchy way, and like what came up was just freaking wild, and we're like, no, 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 like this is not okay. And so we had a HIPAA expert for therapy and an attorney and us come in and talk
Mhm.
about like what was happening with this particular EHR. And a lot of people left the EHR, but a lot of people stay there. Like they said it's fine. And the professional associations were like, this is standard boilerplate stuff. And now there's a class action lawsuit
Oh my
against
gosh.
this EHR for what they were doing with the protected health information for the individual's clients, and how some of that information was being shared with Facebook and TikTok and
Hmm.
whatever else. So and here's the crazy part is it was in the terms of service. Like we
Right.
have like it was in the terms of service. That's part of why we did this. Like, hey, this is in the terms of service that gives them this like okay to do this. Is this really what you want for your clients? Um, so like that's the stuff that's been like popping in more and more
Hmm.
as venture capital. Like that particular EHR was started by a therapist, and the venture capital came in and bought them out, and then like the switch flipped. So
Hmm.
that's the other thing that we need to understand that most of us are not really savvy with is like, again, when you start to navigate in those worlds, like I didn't understand the idea of fiduciary duty.
Hmm.
When you are a publicly traded company, or when you have certain kinds of contracts and corporations, you have a fiduciary duty to make as much money for your investors as possible. You don't necessarily have a fiduciary duty for like what is like ethically sound and clinically relevant,
Right. Right.
right?
Right.
And so if it's a tech company and it's like, oh, you're, making websites, like that's not the same level as when you are providing clinical service, right? But again, even back to this great EHR
Yeah,
example, they were including a quote unquote free website
of course they
as
were.
part of like the things for their website. It was like free for now. But part of what the terms of service said was that like if you didn't pay for the services in the future, that they could run ads on it. And there was no limitations of what kind of ads could be run on this free website. And we're like, hey, do you understand how automated ads work? If you're a substance abuse provider, how would you feel if they started running ads to alcohol sales on your website, your free website from this EHR? Like it really, like the more we kind of pull all of these different sources together, the more we have to think in a different way about things that wouldn't necessarily always matter, but like when we start, like when our clients' data is involved, when our session notes are being like recorded and that information is being used for research and development with our partners and affiliates. Who are your partners and affiliates? What
Oh
is
my
research and
goodness.
development? How far does that go? We don't know. I mean, we're seeing examples of it and it's not great. Like one of the AI therapy companies specifically says, hey, we were built on the largest data set of real life therapy interactions. Now, the person who invested in that company also happens to be a person that invested in a particular platform that therapists have been doing online therapy from.
That's crazy.
Isn't that interesting? It's, I like to say, isn't that interesting?
That's crazy. I mean, I think it just goes to show that, I think educating yourselves in events like this and reading and, doing your due diligence to read the fine print, I think is just so much more important today than it ever has been before.
Yeah,
And that, this is just step one. You don't have to fix all of the forms in your practice today, and you don't have to
yeah,
make sure that everything is perfect right here in this very moment, but this is just step one of educating yourself and realizing that AI isn't going away and that we just have to be more diligent in regards to asking more questions and being more educated and educating our clients as well.
yeah. It's really, really important. We need to understand. And again, like all of the code of ethics come down to it is on us as therapists. We are being held responsibly ethically. And most of us think about like the companies that a lot of people are working for just to like get by while they build their practice. We think of them as employers, but they're actually hiring therapists as 1099 contractors, which makes you a fellow business owner. And the business associate agreements, this is like another wild side note. The business associate agreements that therapists are getting from these companies are going the opposite direction, meaning if I go and work with Zoom, part of me using Zoom means that Zoom needs to provide me a business associate agreement saying
Mhm.
that they are protecting my client's data, right? When we go to work for some of these online platforms as 1099 contractors, most of those BAAs are actually the therapist saying that they're going to protect the tech company's information.
Oh my gosh.
There's no BAA for the therapist, even though the therapist is the actual health provider and the one that needs a BAA. So they are skirting some like really funky laws. Like we have a whole nother free training about just like platforms and how to navigate that, but
Mhm.
it's getting really confusing out there. And like for anyone that's like feeling really fearful, for therapists that are like taking their power back and like getting really clear about what they do and starting to like be like, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. Like therapists have beautiful practices. Like they're doing like intensive only practices. They're diving in with people and having incredible outcomes. They're full with wait lists. Like therapists are really creating beautiful things, but it's not like there's no magical, recruiter that's going to call you up and be like, hey, this is amazing. You're not going to have to think about any of these things, and we'll write your notes for you with the AI. And there's no like it sounds too good to be true, we're really at the point of like, yeah, no, it's too good to be true. Like it's
Right,
not
right,
real.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
All right. Any other
Well, I
questions
know
before we
we're
wrap up?
about 15 minutes after, but thank you for everybody. I mean, we still have a ton of people that wanted to stay and listen to some of the feedback. So thank you those that stay a little bit late. I appreciate it. Miranda, thank you for staying over a little bit to answer some questions.
Yes.
And like I said, I appreciate everybody's participation and attending. And I think that I'm sure, be talking about this topic far more aggressively this year. So I'm sure we'll have some other sessions to back it up. So everybody have a great Wednesday. Again, the recording will be available. Thank you so much. Have a great afternoon, okay? All right, bye-bye.